Welcome back, NSA, to the last Tax Talk Live of 2024. This has been a great program that we started this year to try and take the comments and the discussions that happen on the Tax Talk forum and have a more lively and live discussion. Today, my subject matter expert and co-host is Michael Coronado. I'm sorry, Michael. Michael Coronado from Pronto Accounting. He's been a regular guest here. You know, he's participated a lot, and so we've asked him to come and join us. I put that out as both an incentive and a warning for those of you who are on the call that if you talk, we would love to have you come and be part of the team putting things together and putting them out there. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. The first thing I want to talk about is that, yes, we will continue to do Tax Talk Live sessions in January through April. We totally understand and acknowledge that attendance and participation will be lighter during that time because you all will have work to do. And what we will be tending to focus on are any kind of key issues or changes that are coming up that are important to the community, as well as practice management type items. So we'll focus on those types of things, and we'll probably keep the discussion a little lighter and a little more fast flowing. That being said, when we do have critical issues that come up, if they don't come up if they need to be addressed before we can get to the next Tax Talk Live, we may do a special event webinar where we hit, if a form has changed or a ruling has come down or there's been some sort of policy change, even if that's just at the state level, we want to keep you informed. That way, you just know what's going on. We'll also be recording these and keeping these available on the website. So if you don't have time during the normal live session, you can always go back and get access to those later on. Another key item I want to talk a little bit about is we're going to begin signups for NSA business teams. For those of you who may have participated in business networking groups or mastermind groups or colleague groups or executive groups, there's a lot of different names for these types of things. What they really are, as far as we're concerned, is bringing a number of you together between 8 and 20. We don't want any group to be larger than 20 because it becomes unwieldy. We want to have at least 8 so that we have enough people showing up for each session to make it worthwhile to participate. These are once a month meetings. We are encouraging them to be 2 hours, and we are going to encourage you to use these to set plans, talk about challenges you're having with people who you are not in competition with, but who will understand what you're going through. It's a great way to extend your network into other areas across the country and not need to try and figure out how to meet these people. What will happen over time, we're going to start with a couple of pilot groups. We're getting facilitators put together. We're doing a little bit of training with them. We will launch them officially in May, and we will be asking people who want to join up and participate to sign up on a form and then answer a few questions for us on what types of information and groups they might be looking for. Then we will put you together into a group with a trained facilitator who is also an NSA member. Then the groups will take off. Again, we'll have a suggested agenda. We'll have a suggested template. There'll be a lot of information for those of you who are interested that we'll be putting out. We'll do a bunch of marketing pieces to explain what it is before you have to express interest. And we're hoping that some of you will get involved, and that as we go over time, they will begin to evolve. It is my expectation that some of you will decide, you know what, we really want these sessions to be more frequent, or to be less frequent, or to be longer, or to be less long, or to have guest speakers, or to have specific topics brought up, or to have CPE, or whatever. And as you begin to discuss within your particular team the things that you are interested in pursuing, your team facilitator, team lead, will tell the staff, and we will find ways to make those happen for your individual group. So there'll be a basic suggested layout so that everybody can get started and feel good about it and have some success. And then as you grow together, just like you would with any kind of team or group, you're going to start wanting to grow beyond the bounds of what you did when you began. And we're happy to help facilitate and make that possible. Uh, if any of you have been in these types of things before and would like to comment on it, or if any of you have any questions, I'm happy to take questions on it now, or throw them into the chat and we'll pick them up at the end also.
Yeah, I was going to share. I've been in a couple of these, and I'm currently in a sort of mastermind. I won't plug them. So, but it's a good group. I actually enjoy kind of hearing from peers because really we're all peers, and I think I just stopped thinking about this as all of us being in competition because we're not, even if we're in the same geographic area. There's a lot of business for all of us. We're really competing with the software or the fly-by-nights or people who do this on weekends and aren't really dedicated in the field. And I think if we help build each other up and kind of learn from each other and what's worked and what hasn't worked, and some of the stuff already happens organically on the forums, like folks talking about like BOI and should I do it, should I not, or what should I, and all that stuff. Like those are great things, and I think having a smaller group to kind of bounce those ideas about and would be really beneficial.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I appreciate you offering up your own experience. I think that's incredibly valuable. So today, we're going to do the same thing we always do. We're going to start on one topic, and inevitably, we're going to wander over into something completely different that we hadn't expected, but you all want to talk about. So absolutely be throwing stuff into the chat. I want to remind you that if you're on camera and you raise your hand, I'll be happy to call on you. If you are not on camera, that's not a problem. You can just toss your question into the chat, and Kemi will be paying attention there, and I will be looking over there as people discuss so that I can reiterate your question to the entire audience, and then we can begin to discuss there. If you do want to speak, and we absolutely encourage that, please do accept the panelist invitation. I know many of you already have. Thank you for doing that. You are welcome to share your video. It's always nice to be able to see people, but it's not necessary. It's totally fine if you want to leave your video off because maybe you're having lunch while you listen to us and talk. This is great. Eventually we'll turn this into a virtual cocktail session for those who want to participate in that way, and coffee, tea, or adult beverages will be available, and we'll have an after hours conversation that Jency will get more wild about as we go further and further into the afternoon. So again, thank you very much for participating. Toss your questions, comments, and concerns into the chat. We'll make sure those get out. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about AI and technology. And specifically, I've been getting a bunch of questions from different members in different scenarios, whether it's just talking on the phone or getting some emails, or at Aspire, I had some conversations, or I've had the opportunity to travel and meet up with some folks. Like even 2 weeks ago, just before Thanksgiving, I was down at North Carolina attending one of their events and getting to know their people a little bit better. And one of the things that keeps coming up, not it's not on everybody's mind, and it's certainly not the top of their mind, but I do hear it a lot, is AI. And I get
Oops.
Kemi muted me. He thought I was talking too much. That's all right. That's all right, Kemi. We'll talk about that later when we come up for your annual review. So one of the questions that I do get pretty regularly is, what's AI? How's it going to affect us? Is it something I should be worried about? Is it something I should be using? My staff are using it, and I didn't even know they were using it. Are there concerns about security? What should I be doing? What are these sub AIs that I'm hearing about, and things of that nature? So I'm gonna start, and Michael has been kind enough to be my wingman on this. And so I'm gonna start by talking a little bit about what AI is and how it's going to directly impact us. I'm not getting into a lot of depth. If you want to really get to know what's going on with I cannot encourage you strongly enough to go to YouTube and type in, AI or uh, you know, chat or any of the keywords that I'm about to give you and watch a couple 15-minute videos and you will learn a lot. Uh, the first thing you will learn is that some people know what they're talking about and some people really don't. And I know about enough to give you an overview, which is why that's where I am going to stop. And then Michael is going to share a little bit about what his experiences have been and how he uses it in practice. And then we'll open it up for further discussions and we'll get into different topics. So I want to start by talking a little bit about what the types of AI are. Most of us, when we hear AI, we start thinking Chat GPT. But then Google says it has one, and at one point it's named Bard, and then it's named something else, and Microsoft has one, and it's integrated in. And now I have Apple Intelligence. Is that AI, or are they just making a play on the brand name, or what is all this stuff? And so I want to talk a little bit about the different types of AI because, in many ways, they are absolutely all artificial intelligence, but that's kind of like saying things are produce is organic. Organic food can be organic for many different reasons. Maybe it gets certified by the country. Maybe it says it's got no pesticides. Maybe it says that it's coming from a source that has been certified in some special way or gets some sort of special feed or development, or it doesn't go through certain processes like pasteurization, or it does go through processes like pasteurization. It's so widely varied out there that when you say you're eating organic, to say that, the question becomes, okay, well, what does that mean? So now I'm going to apply that same type of that's a confusion that comes up even among professionals using AI. What type of AI are you using and how is it applied? So the first set of AI that I want to talk about is the one that we mostly reference, which is large language models. And this is your GPT, generative process technologies. And what you really want to look at is large language models means that so OpenAI is the name of the company that developed chat. There are many different versions of that type of technology out there. And what they're doing is they're looking at all sorts of database to figure out what is out there and to answer questions for you and then pre-generate things for you that go beyond just the question that you've asked. So for example, when you go into Google and you put in a search term and you ask, can you show me this? It goes out and it finds a bunch of web pages that should be able to answer your question. When you go into chat, and I'm going to keep using chat, there are many, many, but chat's the most commonly known right now, and it's free and easy to use, so everybody should get a sense for it. And one of the things is you go into to chat and you type it in, it actually gives you an answer. And that answer comes from those websites that are out there, and it puts it together in words that you can understand. And so, what's going to be interesting about what I'm about to tell you is that chat is actually applying multiple versions of this artificial intelligence, specifically the large language model, the expert systems model, and the natural language model. So we're gonna talk about what each of those are. But again, the first piece to understand is large language models. We have massive amounts of data, not only in this country, but in the world. And, everything from websites to your databases to governmental databases to everything from weather to finance to common practices and procedures. All of those are available to be read, sorted, and then used by computers to be able to give you answers to deeper problems. The second piece that I want to talk about is called machine learning. And machine learning is a very broad category of AI because it uses a variety of different types of algorithms to put it together. But those algorithms then go into the data and take and create trends and give you back predictions and decisions. One example is you'll notice sometimes when you're typing, whether it's again on a search engine or maybe you're just typing into your texting into a phone, you'll notice that your device begins to choose offer the next few words for you. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it's not. But what it's doing there is that's the machine learning where it is learning that if people start, can you tell me about the singer? And then suddenly it starts populating. It will say most people are looking for Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, Dolly Parton, whoever. And it is pulling from its data to be able to give you a predictive answer to what you're about to say. Another great example of this is when you're using your text and you have a situation where people are coming back to you. They've sent you a text and you are offered a response automatically, like thank you or hey, that's great or I'll look into that, and you click on it and let it go. That's another predictive modeling from machine learning. Another type of AI is called natural language. And what that is a lot of us, and Google has really pioneered this because when one of the reasons people love using Google as a search engine is you can just type it in the way you would talk to it to another human being about it. And that's called natural language. You don't have to use special search terms. You don't have to do. It used to be those of us who are a little older, who have a little more white in our hair, or maybe don't even have the hair left. We remember we had to do search foo. We had to know how to frame our questions in order to get an answer. Now you can just type the question in and it'll start to understand what it is you're actually asking. And that's a big part of natural learning and the ability for the AI to understand what it is you actually want and then present it back to you. Another piece is reiterative learning or compounding learning. And that's when it begins to take questions that are happening multiple times and be able to provide you back with answers so that it knows this question was asked before or a similar question was asked before. So I'm going to go to this data source to give you an answer. And then I'm going to cross check that answer with what has been asked before. So that's a key piece. Another AI type is expert systems. And many of your applications, whether it's Drake or Intuit or whoever you're using, when they say they're implementing AI into their system, what they are particularly speaking about is expert systems so that when you put in your client's information, it can give you answers before you have to finish typing the forms. It can create the forms for you. It can give you pop-up warnings. Oh, did you check this? I don't see this reference. Can you confirm that it's empty, or can you populate it, or whatever it is? And that's an expert system that has been, I'm going to use the word trained because that's the word we use in the technology. There's no real training going on because there's nothing really alive, but the system has understood that if X equals Y, then I need to remind you of G. And those are expert system pieces that are out there. Incredibly useful, incredibly valuable, and available in almost every particular discipline that's out and available. And then finally, they have some that are actually competitive intelligence offerings, and there's a couple of different names for these, but effectively what they're doing is they're cross-checking data amongst itself, and in order to offer you the best type of answer and response possible. And you may notice this as you're going through that when you type in, especially if you use chat. frequently, you'll get if you type in a question one way, you'll get an answer that goes down one path, and then if you type it in a different way, it'll answer you in a different path because it's starting to figure out, oh, he's not actually asking what I thought he was asking, so I'm going to try answering it this way now. Honestly, it's just like human beings when we ask, I think you mean this, and I start answering and you're like, no, Josh, you're off on a tangent, or Kemi mutes me because I'm talking about something he doesn't want to hear. And then, we refocus and go on a different path. So I want to take a break here for a moment. I want to let Michael jump in and offer some of his observations and thoughts. And then I want to talk about some of the ways in which you can engage with AI and use it in your practice, and some of the things that have been coming up before, like it being wrong. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I want to let people be able to talk also. So,
Yeah.
Michael,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, Josh, thanks. Yeah, that was extremely thorough, so it makes my job easier and harder. I thought it was great because although I've always knew these different types of systems, I think you spelled out about six different uh, kind of uh, under the hood what's happening with what when folks talk about artificial intelligence. And I think that's kind of important to think about it as like under the hood, much the same way if you drive like a Honda and it says it has a VTEC, you don't really care. You just it drives. Does it drive how you want it to? Does it take you where you want to go? And I think that's the opportunity for practitioners is to kind of look at this and say, how can I harness this and make my job uh, not just easier, but also allow me to spend more time providing more value to clients. And kind of like, and before I jump into specifically to accounting and tax work, I look at this like I was, had this conversation with my wife. I said, you know how awesome it would be to be a college student right now? And someone's going to jump up and say that they have all these checks that they check to see if artificial intelligence wrote the paper. It's like I don't want artificial intelligence to write my paper, but do you know how awesome it would have been to bounce ideas about a thesis and then ask and sticking to ChatGPT and the generative nature of it and say, can you provide based on this thesis an outline for a 1,500 word essay on this topic, and these are my sources, and this is this, and it gives you an outline. Now you just got to fill it in, right? So it's no longer now you've got to figure out. You do have to figure it out because you had to ask the questions, right? And that's the thing. That's that's the other part of this is it's only as uh, powerful as the information you give it, right? And so the more information you give it, or the more you ask, what other information do you need? I actually got into that habit of, if I'm trying to do a marketing campaign and I say, as a marketer, I'm planning on doing a social media campaign about the 2025 tax season. What information would you need in order to do this for my accounting practice? And then it will give me a list of numbered lists, and then I just go respond. Number one, yes, we are opening around. Number two, and just go answering line by line all of those, and then hit enter, and then it gives me these ideas. But ultimately, as professionals, and the same thing as the college, in the example of the college student, we have to get that information and look at it and say, and verify it, right? Trust, but verify. Just the same way when we're doing a tax return and we manually entered in all of this data into the system, we still go back and manually add up all the W-2s and make sure that it adds up to what we're seeing in our software. So that's really a kind of important part of it. But I really see that the kind of in the future and as and not the future it's here now. I'm using a tax planning tool that allows me to ask its AI questions about tax planning. Well, what should I do with this, and what if I changed this? And it gives me some data for me to come back. And I think that's really, it's really useful because now it's helping me think. It's like it's like if I had Josh sitting in my office, maybe not as smart. I'm not going to say AI is as smart as Josh, but now I could ask Josh these questions and bounce ideas back. And what about this? And it's now, you talked about the natural language, right? So you're naturally talking like if you were talking to, before if you wanted to run, talking about like data sets, you wanted data, you had to start thinking of how is this data structured and structuring it how the computer expects me to ask it. Where now I could say, which one of my clients had um, the most phone calls based on the data that's in my system, had the most number of phone calls and the most amount of time you spent on the phone speaking to clients, and it should come up and give you the top. Give me the top five, and I'll give you the top five. And if those top five aren't your top five clients that are paying you, then you have a problem, right? Because now you're like, well, they're taking up the most amount of my time, and unless it's, it's your spouse who pays nothing, they should be paid more, right? And so there's this opportunity to go kind of beyond the headlines and beyond the technology of, is this VTech, is this, and then how do I apply this to my business? Just thinking about how can I get this powerful new tool to now help me provide better value, gain better understanding about my clients, about the data, about what's going on in the world, right? And Josh mentioned about asking questions. They're saying that AI is going to replace Google, right? So that's like the next thing. Now we got to place in AI. Like, how do we get AI to find us, right? And so all of these challenges, because things just consistently uh, evolve, and then they make giant leaps up, right? And so where do we get this? How do we apply this to our business so that we can compete effectively? Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what the big brands are doing kind of behind the scenes, because they have millions of dollars to put into R&D to put this in. But now, how do we leverage the tools that we have at our disposal to do this, right? So those are just some examples of how I've used it. I use it a lot. I hate writing, so you'll probably hear me. I don't like, so if I have to respond to a letter or just respond to folks, I do try to uh, leverage AI to help me phrase things nicer, because I'm very short. I'm in that. If you've never heard of it, the 3 sentences thing. I respond with 3 sentences. If it's longer than 3 sentences, I don't send it. But I know that sometimes people need more, so I leverage AI to kind of do that. So that's really, I think that's really the opportunity, is how do we leverage this to do more with less, right? Can we have a 4-hour work week and still make the amount of money we want, because AI is enabling us, and it doesn't have to be called AI, it could be called X, right? And there's just really, and things are taking leaps and bounds, and I'll kind of drop on this note. If you haven't heard about, I think XAI is the one from Elon Musk, and Elon Musk has now gone and, well, he owns Twitter, and he's charging everyone to access Twitter's data except for his own XAI. So XAI gets free use of accessing all his data and just compiling it and figure out how humans talk and interact and what's the data that's out there. And it's just kind of been able to, in months, do what it took ChatGPT 7 or 8 years to do, right? So it's really it's a good thing, I think, in the long term. There's less. I think there's still going to be more a need for the expert, because you still need to do that kind of trust but verify. But
Michael, that was great. My dog clearly agrees. And I want to capitalize on a couple of things that you said. I want to start with, I am the opposite of you. You do 3 sentences. When maybe you should use five. When I should use five, I use 30 sentences. So, and Jency is nodding her head in agreement because she reads a lot of my emails. So I use AI to tighten myself up. So AI is a fantastic editor. It's a wonderful place for you to dump your emails in and make sure it double checks your spelling and grammar. It'll give you ideas on how to rewrite things. It'll help you. Do you want to be more succinct? Do you want to be more contextual? Do you want to offer more context on what needs to be said? What's the tone of my letter? Do I want to be friendly? Do I want to be formal? Do I want to be stern? How, and you can ask AI you can ask chat or other AI forms to actually just rewrite this and give it a set of prompts, shorter, more formal, but I still want to be friendly because they're a client. Or, hey, tell this like an accountant who does stand-up comedy on the weekends, and you'll be amazed at what you get. And so, and then you can go back and tweak it up yourself or ask for something completely different. Similarly, And this is something that Michael brought up, that's a really valuable tool, that I'm hearing that most of you are already using. You use it to start your whatever it is you're doing. I need to respond to a client. I need to tell a client no. I need to tell a new client yes. I need to tell a client, when I was down in North Carolina, during the ethics conversation, they were talking about a client who's frustrated with, the fact that the hypothetical person charged them for, some additional research and work that had to be done. Go to the AI and say, here is my situation. How can I respond to this client in a positive way, to keep them as a client, but also to be firm about the fact that I did need to do this extra work and need to charge them, and you'll start getting some answers. The key thing I think most of us can agree upon is when we're trying to do business communications, the single hardest part of any of those is the start. How do we get off the ground? Whether I mean, I used AI to start our discussion today. I asked it, hey, give me the simple, Michael mentioned that I brought up six. I didn't know these. I didn't go look them all up on the web and sit down and scratch. I said, hey, chat, give me some layout, give me some information. I want to shift gears a little bit though and talk about concerns. And I want to make sure that as we talk about the value that it can bring to you, that we're also keeping everybody aware of the concerns. The first and the biggest and most important concern: do not share any confidential data with your AI. So if you're using an online AI source, chat, whatever it is, don't be putting customer information in there. Just don't. Just do not. Hands down, full stop. Do not do that. First of all, you've got some ethics concerns, you've got trust concerns, you've got confidentiality concerns, but even more importantly, you're now putting that information into that large language model that everybody can get access to, and you don't want to be able to do that. Michael was talking about how, the Twitter's, sorry, I still call it Twitter because I'm old. That X's, new AI is using the Twitter and
Yeah.
X, data, for its own purposes, for free, and they're charging it for everybody else. Well, for those of I'm not on Twitter or X. It's just not been my particular platform of choice. How many people realized, hey, all this information that I've been putting out there, this is all owned now by whoever owns Twitter. And the same thing for Facebook. Facebook tells you in that license agreement that we all click on and that we get a new one every year and we say, "Yeah, I agree, whatever, just let me into my account." It says in there all of the pictures, all of the content, all of the data that you put in there. It's all owned by Facebook and they can do whatever they want with it. And originally this was for them to do ad sales, but now it's so much more. So just be thoughtful as you're putting something in, that you don't want to put in specifics, you don't want to put in details unless you're okay, the way my mother used to say it, unless you're okay with it showing up on the front page of the paper tomorrow. For those of you who, are not 52 years old, a paper is something you used to get that would have the information that you can now find on the internet. Um, and so, that's something that's critical. The second piece is, how reliable is what you get out? So you go in and you ask it a question, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about using it in that way shortly. But when you ask for information, you want to. I loved Michael's, phrase, and I'm going to be using it throughout. Trust but verify. So if you're putting something out there, and you've got, an answer, double check that answer. Take 5 minutes to go double check that that's actually what you've gotten, and make sure the source that you're using is verifiable. Make sure that wherever you're going to get your data makes sense. This was a big deal because people were using AI and AI was making things up to give them answers that it thought they wanted to hear. One example that hit the news very heavily was a lawyer before the Supreme Court citing cases that did not exist. That's probably not a thing you want to do in your professional career. So they called it the AIs would hallucinate. I called it the AIs would make stuff up or lie. So just be very thoughtful. OpenAI, with their Chat GPT piece, now offers citations so that you can click on, when it gives you an answer, you can click on it and see where it got the answer from. However, be very aware that at the bottom of every single message you get from chat, it also says these may not be entirely accurate or correct. So just double check the things that are critical as you're putting them out there, whether it's a tax rate, whether it's a law, a policy, a reference, a resource, whatever that is, double check that before you use it.
Josh,
Go ahead,
I
Michael.
was I ran
Hyman.
into that, quite a few times actually with chat. All right. And I can't give any specific examples. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to write them down. But yeah, I'll ask the question, I'll say provide a citation, and it'll say per IRS publication 563, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and then I pull out publication 563 and I read the whole damn thing, and it ain't in there anywhere.
Right. Right.
Like you said, that's a problem.
So think of it like a really clever intern that's in their first year of college. They're smart. They're going to go use that internet to find you stuff. But man, you absolutely are going to double check all of their work before you actually use it. So that's great, Hyman. And
It's not great. That's the problem.
Well, that's right. But sorry, that was a great example.
Yeah.
That was a great example. Jency?
You know how lost I am. I'm still writing down the letters for Chat GPT.
Okay. Very good. Well, you know what? Speaking on that, so I'm going to share with you here because I want to talk a little bit and then I want to open it up a little bit more. So I'm going to share with you. So I'm on chat right now. And so can you all see my screen? Great.
Yes.
So I was talking a little bit about sub AIs. If you look up here on chat, and most of the others will also have it somewhere on it, and you click Explore GPTs, what you find, sorry, all your lovely pictures are now in my way. Let me move that out over. And so what you will find is that now I've got a variety of different types of GPTs and chats that I can use. And it'll show me different image generators. It'll show me logo creators. It'll write things for me. The Scholar GPT, Michael said, I want to be I would love to be a student right now. So it turns out that as of last week, I was a student, and I have completed my program. While I did use chat a bunch of places, I was very careful not to have it write anything for me for exactly Michael's purpose, that they have ways to scan now. The other thing that the professors do is use AI to be able to validate, did you plagiarize from somebody else? So it's no more sitting and reading a textbook and just writing what's in the textbook into your paper. You have to actually come up with your own verbiage. So that's all great, Josh, but why? And yeah, I can do pictures, this interesting data analyst or creative writing coach. Okay, all that's great. So what? Let's type in tax and let's see what we get. And of course, it's super fast. There we go. And so what I get is I get a series of GPTs. I love it when the technology works for me in the presentation. Come on now. All right, it doesn't love me. But so what I wanted to show you here, and maybe it'll come back up as we're going along here, is that there are people who've gone out and created, they've used the OpenAI source code and they've used the fundamentals of chat to be able to create tax specific or IRS specific or accounting specific or payroll specific or slice and dice it however you want specific GPTs for you. And these are more aimed at and can give you better responses because they're not, the large language models are now focused on a specific contextual source, whether it's the IRS tax code, whether it's accounting policies and generally accepted accounting procedures, whatever those things are. Here's the key. These are mods, these are apps, these are programs that have been developed by specific people using specific types of information resources. That can be great and that can be absolutely worthless. So as you go and look at these, here we go. So as we look, I've got Smart Tax Specialist, Tax and Taxes Specialist. Who has put this together? AIResearchPlus.com. So the first thing I would do is go to AIResearchPlus.com and double check who they are. Where do they get their money? Why would they do this? What's the value add for them? Are they just using this to fish out data from tax professionals or individuals? Or, is there some other type of thing that's going on that way? Similarly, I've got this next one here is Finance, Accounting, Budgeting, M&A, and Taxes by Valerio Flavio Guzzarini. Now, I'm other than mispronouncing their name horribly, I know nothing about them. Who are they? Why have they created this? What's the value in on that? Some are Australian, some are UK. So I certainly don't want to use those in terms of what I'm trying to produce in order to double check. Always make sure that you understand where it's coming from. The first thing you should ask when you go into one of these subgroups, and you go in, so here's who it is. They're a smart tax specialist for tax info, tax resource. So that gives us an idea. It tells us what the capabilities are: code interpreter, DALL-E, web search, education is the category. It's got ratings. Be careful about ratings. Be very careful about ratings because they may not actually be being done by humans. We click on a tax-related question. Now I'm in there. The first question I'm going to ask is, who created this GPT and why? All right, and see what answers they give you. And if you get an error, or if you get an answer that's, because the second question you're going to ask is, okay, where are you getting your information from? If they dither, if they try to obfuscate, if they aren't clear, if they aren't saying things like, we get this from the IRS tax forms, we get this from the tax code, we get this from Wolters Kluwer, we get this from whatever. If they aren't explicit about where they're getting their information, be very careful about using them. If they're hiding it because, oh, we're very special, we're a tax organ, a lot of them will be like, we have when it's only yours, help me out. Why am I blanking on this word? It begins with a C.
Proprietary.
Thank you. Thank you, Evan. Proprietary works just as well. We have proprietary or exclusive data, but be very careful about that. Be very careful about that. So I'm going to stop sharing, but those are out there. They can be very valuable. The NSA is putting one together for our membership. We are already working on the process. We are working with the data direct from the IRS. We're trying to work out a deal to get some of the larger publishers to share some of their resources also. And we're using some of the Tax Talk information, but we're obfuscating who said what, so that we can protect the guilty from things they may have said in a forum while they were on there. We're also being very clear about this came from this space. So so that when Hyman goes to look it up, he can actually find it. And if we don't know where it came from, or if it's from if it's a source that you should confirm, we're going to remind you, by the way, confirm this. And if you need more in-depth research, don't forget, as a member, you get a free question from our tax expert that will do in-depth research for you, and you can bill your client for that time if it's a more nuanced or subjective question, especially if it's something where you need to be able to share some of your data before you actually get the answer back. So you need to share your client. My client did this and that X and is in this position and what have you. I just finished telling you don't share that data. Well, don't share it with us either. Keep that. But you also get free, real person, honest to goodness individuals who go out and do the tax research for us. Your first question is free. Your second question is at cost, which is $50 per question, which any of you know is you're certainly not going to ask them for simple questions, but for a more detailed question where you need to understand, hey, in this, they got this income from a different state, and how does it apply, and what do I need to do with it? They'll go do that research for you. And if that saves you 3 hours, that's $50 well spent, I would suspect, for most of you. So I'm going to shut up for a few minutes. I'm going to ask Michael if he has anything he'd like to add here. And then I'd love to hear from some of you.
Yeah, I was just going to add two things about you. You spoke about the confidentiality. There's a website or a website tool called redactable.com, and they redact. So for the tax planning tools in particular, I put my tax returns through because it will remove all the personal identifiable information, their social securities and things like that, and it will just give the numbers and the basic information off of a 1040. And it's not enough. I know some folks might say, oh, I could just highlight it in black, but if you highlight it in black, the data is still in there. This will actually remove the data from it. It will identify it, will show it to you, and it will do it. So it's a good tool. And so that helps with the confidentiality. And then the other thing is the other really big use case I've used that I forgot to mention, which was summarizing a large document. So if it's not something that's confidential, but you receive this large document, a prospectus or something, and you're like, I want some information, like give me the high level of this. High level summary, no more than 500 words, and it will give you whatever your use case is, or an outline of what this document contains. And so that I think is really useful, and it's just it's evolving every day. And what we talked about today, I'm sure if we watch this video in 6 months, some of it may still apply and some of it may not apply. So things are rapidly evolving.
Excellent. Jency, would you mind sharing, you and I had been talking about AI, and you went and talked to your staff about it, and you found out they were using it. Would you mind sharing that story?
Oh, yes, I don't mind at all. I was just saying what you just said. I just asked something about it, and they said, oh, we've been using this a long time. I just text Robin while we were talking and asked her if she did our year-end letter on AI. Little bit of help there. So yes, we're using it all the time, and I did not know we were using it.
So
then Michael could be my grandchild, so you can see the difference.
So I wanna point out to you, and I see Chris turned her screen on, so I'm hoping she's gonna talk a little bit too. But one thing I want to point out to you is make sure you have a policy. It doesn't have to be a long policy. It doesn't have to be, it's not an NDA. It's not it doesn't need to be crazy. But have a line in the employee handbook at least that says, if you're using AI, we do not share customer data, and you will inform your supervisor that you are using it for whatever project you're using it for. And that's just a simple thing for those of us who have staff who are out there who are, bright and thoughtful and creative and technologically savvy, just so that we know, yes, they did use it. There's no problem with that, but make sure you know, so that you don't run into the situation that Hyman was talking about, where they're trusting on something, but maybe they shouldn't be. And Chris, did you have an experience that you might want to share?
Oh, I'm always willing to share. So what Jency was just saying, so I started this last year. I send a newsletter out, and yes, most of the time it's by paper. I have a very senior clientele, but I keep track through the year of things people ask me over and over and over again. Those same questions. I've again, senior population. The difference between, is Social Security taxable, or do I have to repay it? Those are two different concepts, but people don't understand the difference. So those kind of things come up a lot. So I keep a list of all those things, and I try and cover them at year end. And as of last year, I just went in and I had AI, I said, here's the topic. Now, in this case, I know what the answer is. I don't need research data. I know what the answer is. I just don't have time to write it. And so I've been doing that, and I've done it to answer some emails, kind of the same concept, explain this and then send it out to a client. Because again, knowing the answer is one thing, spending the time to actually sit down and write it is a whole nother thing. And so I was able this year, I've got an 8-page newsletter that I was able to write in a very small window of time, because I went into AI and said, here's what I want, and that's what I got. So very helpful.
Perfect. It's really helpful for marketing and communications and client management type stuff. We did get a question. Will questions submitted to the tax help desk be excluded from the new NSA venture? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because those are going to contain your confidential information, and we want to be a trusted resource for you. And that's between you and the researcher. We don't even look at them as staff, and we certainly don't allow other members or even the board to look at those. So yes, so those will be held in a lot of confidence. Hyman, I sense that a disturbance in the forest. I feel like you have a comment.
Well, yeah, all of you who know me, I'm the cynical guy. All right. Yeah, I just got a whole issue with it. I mean, the example that I gave you before for me is just kind of a perfect example to me, of what, honestly, I use it on a very limited basis, and it's really for two reasons. Number one, yeah, I can get the right answer out of AI. I get that. I could also get the wrong answer. Now I've wasted a half an hour or 45 minutes looking to verify what AI just told me. All right. Yeah. So that's, one issue that I have with it. The second thing is, yeah, if I'm writing a response to an IRS letter, the letter I got from the IRS, chances are it doesn't make any sense anyway, the way IRS is running nowadays. I mean, yeah, it's just crazy. The stuff that's spitting out of the IRS. And the last thing that I want to do is have AI write a letter back to the IRS that isn't going to make any sense either. I've got to write the whole letter myself anyway. All right. And again, I'm the cynical guy, and I acknowledge that. I get it. But I'm thinking about AI the same way I think about what I ask my kids, how much is 10 times 7, and they have to take a calculator out to figure it out. We're not thinking anymore. We're relying on a computer, to do all of this stuff for us. And you guys all know me, I'm a little bit of a, quote unquote smart ass. And I've said this before, until we get to the point where Sulu can drive the enterprise, doesn't have to drive the enterprise, I don't think this AI is as good as we think it is. I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't think it's as good as we think it is, because we have to verify everything that it's doing anyway. If I got to verify it, I might as well do it myself.
Hyman, that was brilliant. And it ties exactly to a comment that Michael made before, that I'm not sure people understood how powerful his comment was. And I'm pointing to him because for me, he's right there as if he were to you. You just mentioned, Hyman, it's not, it's not where everybody think it was. And Michael was like, what it's going to be in 6 months may not be what it is now.
Mhm.
And, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I want to close on as we finish this discussion is be careful of believing the hype. There is a lot of hype out there, both positive and negative. There are many people who are confident that AI is going to end the human race within the next 5 years. There are many people who believe it's going to create a utopia where none of us are going to have to work, and something's going to create little drinks, alcoholic or non, but they're going to put the umbrellas right in there and have it right ready for you. You know, and what's that going to mean? You know, and there's a lot of concerns.
Yeah,
You know, a lot
I don't perceive it. I don't perceive it as being an issue of people thinking that they don't have to work. I mean, that may be part of it. I perceive it more as an issue of people are going to start believing that they don't have to think anymore.
and that's a big piece of it. And then there's the concerns about how is it going to impact our profession? You know, if Intuit is putting AI into everything and making, you know, how does that impact our profession? If, you know, right now people are going and getting their wills done on AI, how is that impacting the legal profession? How
Mhm.
valid is that? And does your state recognize that? And so on and so forth. Because now suddenly AI, we're concerned about with BOI about practicing law. AI is practicing law left and right. And so, you know, there are a lot of things that are going to be worked out over the course of the next 10 years. And what we see now is a lot like what we saw on the internet when it first came out. It was great for email. It was great for, you know, creating your personal web page with flaming spinning logos of your name. And, you know, we don't do that stuff anymore. Now it's a whole different game. And
Oh, yeah, I mean, you mentioned 6 months, what's it gonna be like 6 months ago? And Michael mentioned what's it's gonna be 6 months from now. I don't even see 6 months as being a realistic time frame for this thing. I mean, that's just my humble opinion, right? I think we're literally years out, from having something that's really very, very usable and very, very functional. I mean, I think about in its most basic form, I think about this. I call Comcast or whoever I'm calling on the telephone, and they have the whole voice activation thing, which is all artificial intelligence. That's what it is. Hit one if you want to do this, two if you want to do that. All right. There's 8 things on the list. None of them are ever the reason I'm calling. And what I have to do just to get to talk to a real person, I've pulled what's left of my hair out just trying to get to a real person because I'm fighting AI. I'm fighting a computer to try to get to where I need to be. Right
Yeah.
now, the computer thinks it's smarter than I am. Yeah, and I got a real problem with that. Now, maybe it's because I'm a dinosaur. If I were Michael's age, maybe I'd be a little more positive about it.
I'm not that young, guys.
All right.
I
Well,
just look young.
all right. You have hair, and most of it is not gray.
very good. So I just wanted to say thank you all very much for joining us. I'm gonna wrap us up because we're at 2:57. And I want to thank you very much for joining us. I hope that this helped to kind of illuminate a little bit about some of the questions that you might have had. More importantly, I hope it inspires you to go look up a few things. Again, I'm a visual learner, so I go to YouTube first. You may go to Google, you may go to chat and ask it about itself. I tell you, it's very good about talking about itself, almost as good as I am. And but I really appreciate all of you. We're going to record this. We'll do our normal report afterwards. We'll do some deep dive in some of the items that I put forward, and we'll email that all out to you. Until then, this is again our last Tax Talk Live for the year. I hope you all have a wonderful holidays, whatever those are that you celebrate. I hope you have a fantastic new year. And I wish you a wonderful tax season coming up.
Gee, thanks.
Thank you, Joshua and Michael. Michael, you were very good today. Very,
Oh,
very
thank
helpful.
you.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.